Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. Last Father's Day started out like any other. I was up early, waiting for my wife, Lily, and teenage daughters to join me. Every year on Mother's Day, I'd spoil my wife with mimosas for breakfast, a fancy cheese platter for lunch, and her favorite steak dinner in the evening. As the girls got older, I took care of everything myself. On Father's Day, it was my wife who'd normally prepare a special breakfast, but last year was different. I waited for her to wake up, feeling hungry by the time she finally did. She greeted me with a kiss before getting to work on a family breakfast. Later, we went out to lunch at a quirky cafe that served sandwiches with Doctor Who themes. My wife, ever the calendar organizer, handles our family schedule with precision. Every event, from holidays to birthdays, is marked on the calendar, and I usually miss the details. When she noticed that my birthday was going to fall on Father's Day that year, I wasn't surprised. She teased me about getting double the gifts, promising something special. I kissed her on the cheek, hoping for a bit more than usual. She often teased with playful hints during intimate moments, but on my birthday and Father's Day, the favors were more than just flirtation. They were given without strings attached. I wasn't clueless. I was genuinely excited, thinking maybe this year I'd get an extra treat for my birthday. But as the days went by, something shifted. My wife, usually so steady, began to act differently. She started working late, dressing up more for her job at the bakery, and even wearing makeup more often. I began to feel uneasy when she went out alone on Friday, which wasn't like us. We were always close, preferring each other's company over anyone else's. Our marriage felt solid, and we weren't big on socializing outside. A night at home was what we enjoyed most. So when I saw her dressed up that Friday in a new skirt, tan stockings, heels, and her hair looking like she'd just stepped out of a salon, I thought we had plans. I whistled, expecting a night together, but she said she was going out with her coworkers. Surprised, I asked why she hadn't mentioned it before. She seemed a bit flustered and apologized, saying she'd been asked last minute. I eyed her, wondering how she'd managed to put herself together so fast. My frustration grew as I started to suspect she wasn't being honest with me. Still, the idea of her cheating seemed impossible. She was the picture of a suburban wife and mother. Plus, our intimate life was as good as ever, which only added to my confusion. She brushed off my suspicions, saying she'd worked a half day and just wanted to look nice. I didn't have words as she rushed out the door, leaving me standing there, speechless. She didn't get home until nearly midnight. Her hair was hastily tied up, and the idea that she'd been with her coworkers vanished from my mind. She ignored me, heading straight for the shower. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but deep down, I sensed trouble brewing, especially given my job in retail, where I knew how to read situations. Saturday came, and I headed out early for work. Oddly, my wife didn't wake up to say goodbye, which she usually did. When I got to the store, Alice, the morning barista with her fiery red hair and sharp blue eyes, was waiting by the entrance. I'd always found redheads intriguing, even though I was content in my marriage. "Hey, Derek," she called out as I approached. The doors were still locked. It was about half an hour before opening. Alice had told me before that she didn't feel comfortable working with the night crew. "Morning, Alice," I said, unlocking the doors. "You okay, Derek? You look down today," she observed. "Just got a lot on my mind," I admitted. She gave me a curious look but didn't press. "Hang tight. I'll get you some of our best coffee," she offered. I forced a smile and nodded. "Sounds good. I'll be in shortly." I secured the doors and made my usual rounds on the sales floor, checking in with the department managers. Even though I didn't need to, my team ran a tight ship. I liked chatting with them, keeping a positive atmosphere. I believed it made a difference, and I think they appreciated it. My last stop was the cafe, where Alice had my large black coffee waiting for me. "Here you go, Megamar's finest brew," she said, handing it over. "Thanks, Alice," I replied, pushing $2 across the counter. "Keep your money, boss," she insisted. "I can't take chances, Alice. I cover my own expenses. The last thing I need is someone making a fuss with a corporate over a $2 coffee." She gasped. "Derek, I'd never do that." "I know, but still. You'd be surprised what people complain about," I explained. "It's not worth the headache." "All right, boss. I get it," she said, nodding. I waved her off and took a sip. Some of the employees probably got free coffee every now and then, but it wasn't worth the hassle to monitor it. My job came with enough stress, dealing with complaints about things like parking or HR issues, that chasing down a free coffee wasn't worth it. The day passed quietly. The most exciting thing that happened was an elderly woman trying to steal bird and cat food, which gave me a distraction from my worries at home. When I got back that evening, my wife and daughters were heading out to a concert with friends. It was something they'd planned, but I had forgotten. I'd been so preoccupied that it slipped my mind. I hoped to talk to Lily later to sort out the tension between us. Not knowing what happened the night before was gnawing at me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That night, I decided to check her email, but to my disappointment, I didn't find anything. She hadn't received any significant messages, at least none that revealed what I feared. I couldn't check her texts or call log, and searching her clothes for clues wasn't any more fruitful. She had already done her Saturday laundry. Frustrated, I gave up and went to bed after watching a movie, still feeling unsettled. When my birthday and Father's Day came around, I started the day the usual way: toast, coffee, and sitting out on the porch, enjoying the calm early morning. The birds were chirping, and I couldn't help but wonder what the day had in store for me. Around 9 a.m., I went back inside to refill my coffee and noticed my wife and daughters up, busy packing lunch. Surprised by their early activity, I asked what was going on. Taylor, my oldest, casually mentioned they were heading to the beach. It caught me off guard, especially since I realized they hadn't forgotten my birthday this time. Unlike how I often had to remind them of important dates, I was puzzled as Lily, my wife, didn't seem to have anything special planned. Just then, my phone rang. I hoped it was them calling to say they'd changed their minds, but it was my mom instead. "Hey, Derek. Happy birthday and happy Father's Day," she said cheerfully. "Thanks, Mom," I replied. "Looks like Lily has some big plans for you guys today," she added. "Nope, she just took the girls to the beach," I told her. "Really? That's not like her. I figured she'd whip up something special for breakfast and make the day all about you," she commented. "Yeah, I'm not sure what's been going on lately. She's been acting strange for a while now," I admitted. "Well, don't worry about it too much, sweetheart. She probably has something special planned for later. I've got to head off to church now. Love you, Derek." "Love you too, Mom," I said, hanging up the phone. Her eternal optimism and close bond with Lily always warmed my heart, especially after Dad passed away a few years back. As I stood there, thinking about my marriage, my phone rang again. This time, it was my assistant. "Hey, Derek, there was an incident at the coffee shop this morning." "What happened? Was Alice involved?" I asked. "Yeah, unfortunately. A customer shoved her on the stairs, and she lost her balance. It looks like she might have a broken arm. They took her to St. Alex's for x-rays." "Oh no, poor girl. Do you need me to come in and cover her shift?" I asked. "No, everything's under control. I just wanted to give you a heads up for tomorrow. Sorry for bothering you on Father's Day." "Don't worry about it. Thanks for letting me know," I replied. I felt bad for Alice, but figured they wouldn't be back in time to cover the shift. With no one home, I headed to IHOP for breakfast. The place was packed with families celebrating Father's Day, and I started to feel overwhelmed, like I didn't belong there. I left before I could get too emotional, and ended up at McDonald's instead. Sitting in the park with my coffee and orange juice, I thought back to the boating trips I used to take with my daughters when they were younger. Now that they were getting ready for college, they seemed more distant, spending more time with their mother. Maybe it was for the best, I told myself. The day was slipping away, and I doubted there would be any special dinner planned. I grabbed a Reuben at the Doctor Who-themed cafe, where a Facebook post from my mother-in-law surprised me. She commented about their beach trip, which meant my wife had been posting photos of their day. Feeling down, I made my way to a sports bar, but I couldn't shake the sadness, so I left and went to a cigar lounge instead. There, I splurged on an Opus X, settling in to watch the game. A couple of older guys invited me to join them in a card game. I'm Derek. I introduced myself. I'm Lenny, and this here is my brother, one of them replied. We shook hands, and they welcomed me into their game of 5-card draw. Grab yourself a drink, Derek, Lenny said, gesturing to a cooler on the floor. I thanked him and grabbed a Miller Lite. So, no kids today. Or did the ex take them off with her new guy? Noah joked, smirking. I frowned. No, my wife and daughters are at the beach. Seems like they've forgotten what day it is. Tough break, Lenny chimed in. I hardly see my boys anymore. Both of them are in the service. Noah nodded. My daughter's out in California, and my grandson, Charlie, just turned 2. I'm heading out there next week. That sounds great, I replied. As my girls hit 17 and 18, I found myself missing when they were little. They nodded, understanding the sentiment. The conversation eventually circled back to my wife. Do you think she really forgot your birthday, or is she just avoiding you? Noah asked, voicing the same question that had been gnawing at me. I recounted the strange things that had been happening lately, especially Friday night. They both shook their heads. She's cheating on you, Lenny said bluntly, and Noah nodded in agreement. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, it made sense. I don't know. I just can't believe it, I muttered, struggling to process what they were telling me. Listen, Derek, Lenny began sharing his own story. I've been where you are. The late nights out, dressing up all fancy, the disrespect, it all adds up. I reacted too fast and went straight for divorce when I found out my wife was unfaithful. I regretted it. The financial hit, the emotional toll, it wasn't worth it. Trust me, if you really love her, think about forgiveness. Guys our age don't get many second chances at love. I thanked them for their advice, even though I thought they were crazy. The idea of forgiving her seemed impossible. I shook their hands, said goodbye, and left the lounge. Later, as I scrolled through Facebook on the couch, I saw more photos of my wife and daughters, smiling and having fun at the beach. It crushed me. Enough was enough. It was time to face reality. My wife had forgotten my birthday and Father's Day, but more importantly, I was sure now that she'd cheated. The signs were all there, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. Determined to move forward, I got ready for the night, deciding to treat myself to dinner at my favorite restaurant. Even if it meant a long wait, I didn't care. I headed out for dinner, craving a good steak. Sitting at the bar while waiting for my table, an older man took the seat next to me. He had the champagne bottle sitting in front of me and frowned slightly but said nothing, ordering himself a martini instead. As the bartender topped off my glass, the man couldn't resist asking, "Celebrating alone, or did someone else bail on you?" "Just me," I replied with a small smile. He nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "I'm waiting for my family," he said, 3 generations strong, though my daughter broke her arm earlier today, he added with a chuckle, clearly amused by the idea of grown kids still managing to get hurt. I nodded, appreciating the humor. "Looks like I'll be cooking solo for a while. My wife needs to take care of Alice and Lisa, so she'll be leaving me to my own devices for a bit," I said. Before I could say more, a little girl came running across the crowded bar, yelling "Grandpa," and showering the man with hugs and kisses. A moment later, I heard my name. Alice and her mom were walking toward me. The resemblance between them was uncanny. "Hey, Alice, how's your arm?" I asked, concerned. "Not too bad, thanks. The painkillers are working, but when it happened, it was pretty rough," she replied. Alice introduced me to her parents, Carl and Matilda, and their daughter, Lisa. "Where's your wife, Derek?" Matilda asked. "I'm not sure," I said. "She took the girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day. It's Father's Day and your birthday, no less," Matilda exclaimed. "That's terrible. What's going on with her?" I didn't want to get into it, so I shrugged it off. "Forget about her," Matilda insisted. "You're joining us." Carl, clearly sensing where this conversation was headed, gave me a knowing smile. "You don't want them ganging up on you, Derek," he said with a chuckle, clearly familiar with how these situations go. "Thanks, but it's your day. I don't want to intrude," I protested. "Nonsense, Carl," he replied. "This is our day, Derek. Grandpa's day." Their table buzzer went off, and Carl tossed a $2 bill on the counter before leaving. "We'll see you at our table," he insisted. "Sorry about that, Derek. My parents can be pretty stubborn." Alice apologized. "Don't worry about it, Alice. Eating alone would be worse," I assured her. Dinner was lighthearted, filled with stories about our kids. Lisa giggled at the stories about her mom's antics as a child. My phone rang during dinner, but I ignored it, leaving it on the table. "Your wife?" Matilda asked, looking curious. "Yeah," I admitted. "It's complicated. Maybe you can find a way to forgive her," Matilda suggested, glancing at Carl. I waved for the check, grateful for their company, and treated them to dinner. As I signed the receipt, I thought about the advice I'd been hearing all day. Despite not having solid proof of my wife's infidelity, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I ignored the phone as it continued to ring. When I got home, my daughters greeted me with hugs and apologies for forgetting Father's Day. "Girls, it's okay," I told them. "I don't expect you to remember everything." Suddenly, Taylor's face changed. "Wait, it's your birthday today." She ran inside, yelling for her mom. "Daddy, we didn't know. We're so sorry. You must hate us." "No, sweetheart. I love you girls more than anything. You didn't know. It's fine," I assured her, hiding my anger toward Lily. This wasn't my daughter's fault. It was between me and their mom. I went upstairs to change, leaving the commotion behind, and when I came back, I found Lily crying by herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but I shook my head and stepped out onto the deck with a beer and a cigar. The peaceful evening felt like a mockery of the turmoil in my mind. Lily came outside a few moments later. "Derek, she started, but I cut her off, my anger boiling over. "What's his name?" I demanded. She didn't answer, and that silence was all I needed to know. At that moment, I realized I was headed for divorce. Marrying her had been a mistake, and now, nearly 20 years later, it was all coming to a bitter end. The worst part was wondering how long she'd been unfaithful. Was this her first time? Did I even know this guy? Were my daughters really mine? It's shocking how dark your thoughts can turn when someone betrays you. I decided right then that I would request a paternity test for the girls, not just for peace of mind, but to embarrass Lily in the process. That night, I stayed up late researching divorce laws online before finally falling asleep on the couch, alone, on my birthday. At 5 a.m., I woke up. Lily was asleep in her bed, curled up around her pillow, looking peaceful. I hated to admit it, but she was still beautiful. But she wasn't mine anymore. After a quick shower, I left the house without waking her. In the hallway, Taylor was waiting for me. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad," I replied. "As bad as it gets," she pressed. "Can you forgive her?" she pleaded. "It was just one day, one mistake," she insisted. "Honey, it's more than just forgetting my birthday and Father's Day. She cheated on me," I said quietly. No, Dad. She wouldn't do that. There has to be a reason. Maybe something pushed her to it. But I know she wouldn't, Taylor insisted. Think about it, Taylor. She's been acting strange for weeks. Friday night, she got all dressed up and went out, looking amazing, but not for me. That wasn't for me, I said, my voice biting her. Taylor stayed quiet, thinking. She avoided me all weekend, Taylor. She felt guilty or resentful, maybe both. When has she ever taken you and your sister to the beach without me? That's always been a family thing. Taylor looked down. What if it's not an affair? What if it was just a one-time thing? Can't you forgive her? I doubt it was just one mistake, Taylor. And besides, has she shown me any love this weekend? When she went out with someone else, she left me behind. That's not love. That's selfishness, I explained. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she hugged me tightly. Please don't divorce her, she begged. I have to head to work, honey. We'll talk more later, I said, watching her retreat into her sister's room. The rest of the day felt like a blur. Alice came in, and I helped her with some paperwork related to her accident. She was struggling to fill out the forms with her left hand, so I guided her through it. How are things at home? Alice asked, looking concerned. Not good, I admitted. She didn't even deny it when I confronted her. Damn direct. I'm so sorry, Alice said sympathetically. Thanks, Alice. I don't really want to talk about it, though, I murmured. Alice nodded, understanding. I get it. My ex cheated on me when I was pregnant, and I kicked him out before the baby was born. My mom wasn't happy about it, and called me disposable. That's rough. It surprised me when your mom suggested I forgive my wife last night, she admitted. Yeah, I noticed that too. It makes me wonder if something happened between my parents when I was younger, I added. Well, if they're happy deceiving each other, that's their problem. I don't trust liars, I said, my voice hard. When I got home, Lily wasn't there. I figured she was with him. Furious, I drove to her grocery store, where I found her car parked in the back lot. I didn't even get out when I saw her with a young guy, probably in his early 20s. She noticed me and yelled something, but I drove off. If she was cheating, he could have her. I packed my bags that night and moved into a hotel. Wendy and Taylor begged me to stay, but I couldn't. Your mom's been cheating on me, I told them. I saw her with a man today. There must be a mistake, Dad, Wendy insisted. There's no mistake. I saw it with my own eyes, I replied. Please don't break up our family, she sobbed. Your mom did that, honey, not me. I love you both, and I'll be in touch every day, I reassured them, leaving them in tears as I drove away. Lily nearly hit me as she sped out of the driveway, but I didn't care. The following week was tormenting. Lily bombarded me with calls and messages, begging for another chance. Her family tried to get me to talk to her, but I ignored them all. Even my daughters tried to convince me to forgive her, but I couldn't. Eventually, I met with a lawyer. I was willing to split the house equally, even though I could have claimed more since I'd paid for most of it. Surprisingly, I didn't have to pay alimony. Lily could support herself. The only downside was not having concrete proof of the affair, which could weaken my case, but I was ready to take my chances. Lily tried to rally her family against me, insisting she'd only cheated once, on that Friday before my birthday. It was surreal. Even my daughters started to turn on me until I lied, telling them a DNA test was court-ordered. That shut things down fast. Then a letter from Lily arrived, admitting to a fling with a 21-year-old. That was all the proof I needed. Finally, the divorce proceedings went my way. Despite her resistance, the judge approved the terms I proposed, and the divorce was set to finalize in 60 days. After that, I was isolated. Even my mom stopped talking to me, siding with Lily. It hurt, but I stood my ground. I called my daughters every day, leaving messages, even when they didn't respond. I wasn't going to let them forget about me. One bright spot was my Sunday coffee with Alice and Lisa. We'd meet at a nearby coffee shop, and while Lisa watched cartoons, I talked to Alice about everything I was going through. "Your daughters will come around, Derek," Alice reassured me. "Living with your wife, who knows what she's been telling them?" "I hope so." "I just miss them so much," I said, feeling the weight of it all. The following week, I returned to the same coffee shop at my usual time, settling in with a book when I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, stranger," Alice said with a smile. I looked up and waved her over. "Are you stalking me, or is this just part of your Sunday routine?" she teased as she sat down. "Nope, I live nearby. I like to come here for coffee and some reading on Sunday mornings. It gets a bit lonely at home," I admitted. We talked about the neighborhood, catching up on small things, and then went our separate ways. It wasn't planned, but meeting for coffee every Sunday became a habit, and I found that I enjoyed her company. Lisa was a joy to be around too. On the day the divorce was finalized, I knocked on the door of what used to be my house. Lily answered, her eyes red from crying. Without saying a word, she motioned for me to come in. "Are the girls home?" I asked. "They're at a school play," she said. "I knew you'd come tonight," she added softly. "So, you waited until it was too late to stop it, didn't you?" I said with a bitter smile. "Yes," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I knew if I begged, you might listen, but I couldn't let that happen." "You broke my heart, Lily. There's no forgiveness for that," I replied coldly. "It was one mistake, Derek. Why couldn't you just forgive me?" she pleaded. I looked her in the eye. "Did you love me when you were with him? Did you love me when you ignored me on my birthday? If that's what love looks like to you, then we were never on the same page." "I never wanted this to happen," she sobbed. "And I never wanted a cheating wife," I shot back. "But here we are." She tried to speak again, but I cut her off. "You didn't just break my heart. You turned my own mother and daughters against me. I'll never forgive you for that." "You're overreacting," she countered. "If you don't make things right with our family, I'll make sure every man you date knows what you did." "I don't need anyone else," she snapped. "Wrong answer," I said, getting up. "I'll find other ways to make you regret it." As I turned to leave, she grabbed my arm. "It's not my fault," she cried desperately. "Oh, really? Did I cheat on you?" I pulled my arm free. "You've set an example for our daughters, showing them it's okay to cheat and call it a mistake." "Well, I'm not going down because of some guy who made you feel attractive again," she spat as I walked out the door, unaffected by her tears. A few weeks later, Alice knocked on my office door. "Got a second, Derek?" "Sure, come on in," I said, curious about the look on her face. "Derek, does the company have any rules about dating coworkers?" she asked, and my stomach dropped. I had been thinking of asking her out myself, but now it seemed I was too late. "No, but we have strict policies about harassment or favoritism," I explained. "It's meant to protect everyone involved." "Good," she smiled, leaving her address and phone number on my desk. "Let's have dinner tomorrow night. Lisa will be joining us." I couldn't help but grin. "Sounds perfect," I replied. Later that day, I left a voicemail for my daughters. "Hey, it's Dad. Hope you and your sister are doing well. Nothing much here, except a coworker asked me out. Love you both, call me soon." I knew that might stir things up with Lily, but I didn't care. It was time for me to move on. I was grateful Alice had made the first move. Not only was she beautiful, but she had a kind heart, and her daughter was a delight. Things were finally starting to look up. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Already dating? You're such a fool." I chuckled at her reaction. I wasn't about to mourn the end of my marriage to a cheating wife. At 41, I still felt young enough to find love again, maybe even have more kids. Alice, being in her 30s, might want that too. It was early to think about such things, but I knew it might be a priority for her as a single mom. As for me, I hadn't been with anyone in months. The next evening, I showered, shaved, and dressed casually for my dinner with Alice. I checked myself in the mirror, still in good shape, no extra weight, and my brown hair hadn't gone gray yet. I had a well-paying job and savings, so I figured I was a decent catch for someone like Alice. When I arrived at her house with flowers, wine, and a stuffed bear for Lisa, I was nervous. Alice opened the door, and I was taken aback. Her red hair fell in soft curls around her shoulders, and her sundress showed off her legs. Barefoot, her hot pink toenails matched her fingernails. Did I pass the test? She teased. God, yes, I blurted out, laughing at my own words. She chuckled, accepting the gifts and ushering me in. Lisa was glued to the TV, but her face lit up when I handed her the stuffed bear. I knelt beside her and smiled. This is for you. Her eyes sparkled with delight as she grabbed the bear, rushing off to show Alice. Watching Lisa, I couldn't help but think of Taylor and Wendy at her age. It made me miss them more than ever. Alice noticed my expression. What's wrong? I forced a smile, just thinking about my girls when they were this little. Is it really that bad? She asked. They still won't talk to me, I admitted. Lily turned them against me. I leave messages every day, and I won't stop trying. But I can't change their minds. I'm sorry, Derek. That's gotta be tough, she said sympathetically. But I'm sure they listen to your messages. I mentioned our dinner tonight, and Lily texted me. Already dating. You're such a fool. I said, shaking my head. Alice bit her lip. Am I moving too fast? She asked, looking slightly embarrassed. Maybe, I admitted, but I'm happy to find out. She smiled and took my hand. Dinner's ready. I hope you like pasta with meat sauce. Sounds great, I said, feeling more relaxed. Oh, and I have garlic bread too, so get ready for us to spend some quality time on the couch later, she teased, making me laugh. After dinner, as we settled in with wine, Alice leaned into me. Being a mom is the best part of my day, but moments like these are special too, she said softly. I wrapped an arm around her, and she nestled closer. It's even busier with 2 kids, I said, thinking of my daughters. Do you think they'll come around? She asked. I hope so, I replied, feeling the weight of the situation. She kissed me on the cheek and set down her glass. Derek, I've been clear that I really like you. I'm not playing games. I want to keep seeing you, and I want this to be serious. I'm not looking for flings. I opened my mouth to respond, but she held up a hand. I know you want to be a gentleman, but you don't have to be. I need something real, and my daughter needs a father figure. That's what I'm offering. Wow, I said, impressed by her honesty. Alice smiled and took my hand. So, what do you say? I hesitated, then nodded. I'm a family man, always have been. I'm not interested in dating. If my wife hadn't cheated, I'd still be married. But I like where this is going. She grinned and kissed me softly. Good, because I like you too. That night, we didn't rush into anything. We both wanted to take it slow and respect each other's feelings. Soon after, fate handed me a strange gift. The guy who had contributed to the end of my marriage applied for a night manager job at my store. I recognized him instantly. On a second shift, I left a 40-inch TV in his car, one that matched the stock we had just unloaded. The next morning, I casually walked into his car. When we saw the TV, I was surprised. Did you buy that TV? I asked, playing dumb. No, Derek, it's not mine. I don't know how it got there, he stammered. Let's head back to the store and figure this out, I suggested. Back at the store, I checked the security cameras, knowing there was no night crew. He was panicking, insisting he was innocent as I called the police. He got off with a misdemeanor in community service, but his job was gone, and that was enough for me. A few weeks later, on a chilly Saturday morning, I parked beside Alice's car. She was waiting for me, and as I walked up, she greeted me with a kiss. Dinner tonight's still on. I asked. Absolutely. I'm making something special, she replied, smiling. Before I could respond, I heard a familiar voice behind me. We need to talk about the girls in college. It was Lily, looking irritated. Alice shot her a sideways glance as I turned around. They can go wherever they want. I've handled the finances, I said coolly. But thanks to you, they won't talk to me. Lily claimed the girls were worried I wouldn't cover their tuition. I lost them in a divorce, huh? Alice quipped, earning a sharp glare from Lily. You've ruined everything. Lily shot back at me. One mistake, and you've cost me my marriage, my family, my daughters, and even my mother. You better not even think about dating anyone else. I'll make sure you never have a second date, she threatened. Alice's reply was quick and cutting. No one's lining up to date a cheating woman unless they're after something easy. I started to walk away toward the store, but the shouting behind me made me turn around. Alice had stepped right up to Lily, pinning her against the car. Stay away from my man. Alice snapped, jabbing a finger at her. I rushed back, pulling Alice away. Stop it, Alice. She's not worth it, I said, trying to defuse the situation. You heard me. Lily spat, storming off. Please, Lily, just go. It's over, and that's on you. I called after her, watching her leave in tears. I caught up to Alice, taking her hand. I'm sorry, Derek. I got way too territorial, she admitted. No worries. Parking lot fights are great for the ego, I joked, and we both laughed as we headed inside. Later that day, I got a call from my mom, but the call dropped unexpectedly. Concerned, I rushed over to her house, ignoring Alice's calls. When I arrived, the ambulance was already gone. I found out at the hospital that she had passed away before even reaching the yard. Sitting alone in the lobby, I thought about her final words, the ones I'd never get to hear again. My phone rang. It was Alice. Hey, my mom just passed away, I said, my voice barely holding steady. Oh, Derek. I'm so sorry, she replied, her voice full of concern. Do you want me to come over? Yeah. I don't want to be alone right now, I admitted. I'll be there as soon as I can, she reassured me, and I was grateful to not face this alone. Instead of heading home, I found myself driving to my old house. I needed to speak to my daughters, no matter how things stood between us. Their cars were parked in the driveway, and a wave of apprehension washed over me. At least Lily's car wasn't there. I wasn't ready for that confrontation. I walked upstairs and found Taylor in her room. Daddy, she exclaimed, but her joy was short-lived as Wendy appeared behind her. Did you come here to beg? You can leave, Wendy snapped. Grandma had a heart attack this morning. She passed away, I said, my voice breaking the tension. They both gasped, stunned into silence. I just thought you needed to hear it from me, I added quietly. With that, I turned and left, ignoring Wendy's call for me to wait. I couldn't face more conflict. I drove to the lake where we used to spend family days, hoping for some peace. The chilly breeze and still waters provided a small measure of comfort. But soon, I felt the tears well up again, not just for my mom but for the wedge driven between me and my daughters. What had I done to make them resent me so much? Lily had shattered our family, but they couldn't see that. Lost in thought, I didn't hear them approach until it was too late. I turned to see Lily and the girls standing nearby. How did you find me? I asked, turning back to the lake. You forgot to turn off your location sharing on your phone, Lily replied quietly. Derek, I'm sorry about your mom, she added, her voice soft. Yeah, I muttered. Do you regret her passing or turning her against me? She fell silent. Just leave me alone. I can't handle this right now, I said, my emotions overwhelming me. I'll never forgive you. Lily's voice wavered. The last time we spoke, she said she wouldn't talk to me until I begged you to stop the divorce. She didn't even say she loved me before hanging up. I'm so sorry, Derek, she said again before turning to leave, but Wendy's voice cut through the moment. Dad, We're sorry too. Please forgive us for being so rude. Both girls rushed over, hugging me tightly, and we cried together. It's not your fault, girls, I said tearfully. Your mother's actions broke us apart. We're sorry, Dad, Taylor whispered. We just wanted you to forgive her. She loves you. It's obvious. Not enough to stay faithful, I replied sadly. I'm sorry, girls. I love you both, and I need you. You're heading to college soon, and I'll miss you. Let's not waste more time. We won't shut you out anymore, Daddy, Wendy promised. I just wish Grandma had the chance to hear that, Taylor added, her voice full of regret. Come with me, girls, I said. You haven't seen my new place yet. Let's grab some pizza on the way. When we pulled into my driveway, I saw Alice's car. I had completely forgotten she was coming. Looks like you'll meet Alice, I told the girls. Is she your girlfriend? They asked in unison, making me laugh. Well, we just started dating, I said, feeling a bit embarrassed. Look at him blushing, Wendy. So cute, they teased, jumping out of the car and rushing over to Alice, bombarding her with questions. Girls, give her a break. Help her inside, and I'll introduce you properly. I called after them, shaking my head. As I approached, Alice smiled warmly, opening her arms for a hug. Your daughters, she asked, grinning. I nodded. Come on, let's do this right. I introduced Alice to the girls, and after a few cheeky comments from Wendy and Taylor, we all started laughing. Let's do a quick tour of the house, I suggested. Then I need to make arrangements for my mom's services. I'll order pizza while you show them around. Alice offered, smiling as if she could read my mind. After dinner, we sat around sharing stories about my mom. My daughters even shared a few embarrassing stories about me, much to Alice's amusement. Hours flew by, and before we knew it, it was past 10 p.m. Girls, it's getting late, I remarked. I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet. Can we stay the night? Taylor asked hopefully. I'll tell you what, I'll pick you up tomorrow, and we'll have breakfast together, I suggested. Can we help sort through Grandma's things too? Taylor offered. Thank you, honey, I said, touched by her offer. Alice, would you like to join us? Or do you need to go home to Lisa? She's with my parents, Alice said. Taylor perked up. Who's Lisa? She's my 4-year-old daughter, Alice explained, and the girl's eyes lit up. Oh, we have to meet her soon, Wendy said excitedly. Alice chuckled. Someday soon, I promise. Back at the house, Alice and I snuggled up on the couch. They're great girls, she said, resting her head on my shoulder. I'm glad you're reconnecting with them, I sighed. I am too, I said. I just wish it didn't take my mom's passing to bring us back together. With Alice wrapped in my arms, I fell asleep, feeling a sense of peace for the first time in a long while. The next morning, I woke up with Alice still nestled against me under a blanket. I kissed her forehead gently, apologizing for falling asleep. She stirred and stretched. It's okay, baby. You've been through a lot. Would you like to join us for breakfast today? I asked. Only if I can bring Lisa, she said with a smile. My parents have plans this morning. Of course. My daughters would love to meet her. Later, I met my daughters at IAOPU, Lisa and Tao. As soon as we walked in, my girls rushed over, greeting Lisa with hugs and twirling her around. Lisa giggled in delight. We'll take her to the bathroom, the girls announced in unison, whisking Lisa away. I turned to Alice, grinning. Think they'll get along? She laughed, playfully nudging me. I hope they stay friends for years to come. It was just the start, but Alice's commitment to something long-term reassured me. Over breakfast, my daughters and Lisa bonded quickly, talking about everything from cartoons to their favorite movies. Alice fit in perfectly, and for once, there was no hostility or awkwardness from my daughters. I wasn't sure why, but it felt like a fresh start for all of us. Later that day, after a whirlwind of phone calls, cleaning out my mom's house, and making arrangements at the funeral home, I finally had a moment to breathe. The girls had returned for dinner, while Alice and Lisa had gone their separate ways after breakfast. Alice had suggested that it might be easier for Lisa not to be around while I was sorting through my mom's belongings. Out of the blue, Wendy looked up at me and asked, "Dad, are you in love with Alice?" Caught off guard, I answered, "We've only seen each other a few times outside of work. It's too early to say it's love." Taylor, ever the skeptic, smirked. "Okay, Dad, but you know those cartoons where girls get all dreamy-eyed and hearts start floating? That's Alice when she looks at you." Before I could object, the girls exchanged knowing looks and declared, "We like her." My heart swelled with joy for a moment, but then Andrew quickly followed. Setting my pizza down, I headed for the sink to cool off. "Daddy," Wendy's voice softened as she followed me. "How could you shut me out for so long? And now you're okay with this? Do you know how many times I cried after leaving you messages, thinking you didn't care?" "You think I didn't care?" I asked, turning to face her. "I left you messages too. I thought you didn't want to hear them." Taylor stepped in. "It started with Mom. She said that if you felt distant, you could come back to her and we'd be a family again. We're really sorry." I looked over at Wendy, and her eyes were filled with tears. She rushed over to hug me. "Dad, we're so sorry. When that didn't work, she told us you'd abandoned us and wouldn't pay for college because you didn't want to stay with her," Wendy added. "She made it sound like your messages during the divorce were just tactics to win in court. You believed her?" I asked, my heart sinking. Imagine sitting with her every day, hearing her defend one mistake against 20 years of marriage. "Would you forgive your boyfriend for cheating?" There was silence. They couldn't give me an answer. Tears streamed down their faces as we hugged. "I've missed you both so much," I said, feeling the weight of the past lifting. After we embraced, I reminded them, "School's tomorrow. Make sure your mom lets them know about the wake at the funeral. You'll need some time off." One final hug, and I watched them drive off, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Mom, I didn't need you to leave to bring my girls back, but thank you. I'll miss you." Wakes have always been tough for me. Something about being near a body never sat right with me. My mom's wake was even harder. As I approached the casket and saw her peaceful face, I found some solace in knowing she'd be with my father now. She planned everything meticulously, even down to the choice of casket. It was a relief knowing she had everything arranged. As I chatted with one of her old friends, Lily and my daughters arrived. The girls gave me tearful hugs, while Lily stood to the side, respectfully keeping her distance. After the prayer, I noticed Lily place something in the casket before sitting in the back of the room. I walked over and saw it was a photo of me, Lily, and my mom, all holding our babies, smiling like we didn't have a care in the world. Touched, I picked up the photo and set it near my mom's hands, tears welling up as I did. During the service, Lily stayed in the back, quietly chatting with a few family members. Despite everything, it was clear she still held a place in their hearts. The standard rule was for immediate family to sit in the front, but it didn't feel right seeing her sit alone at the back with tears in her eyes. I knew my mom wouldn't have wanted it that way. Walking over, I invited her to join us. "Come here, Lily. No need to hide," I said gently. She hugged me, whispering a quiet thank you before joining us in the front. My uncle offered her his seat, and even Alice gave her a small nod of approval. Holding Alice's hand while my ex-wife sat nearby was surreal, but I hoped it wouldn't stir up any trouble. As the last visitors left, Lily thanked me for allowing her to be part of the family again. She offered to share the limo ride, but Alice's hand on my waist reassured me there wouldn't be any tension. As Lily departed, Alice wrapped her arms around me in the kitchen, offering me a cold beer. "I think everything went well with Lily today," she said softly. "Yeah," I agreed, taking a sip. "I'm glad she didn't cause any trouble. I half expected her to." Alice smiled. "The girls probably helped with that." Everything will be fine after tomorrow. I hope so, I said, though I couldn't shake the paranoia that Lily and Alice might clash again in the future. Will you stay over tonight? She asked. You couldn't kick me out if you tried, I replied. We didn't make love that night, but having her there brought me the best sleep I'd had since the divorce. At the funeral, Lily's voice broke through my thoughts as we waited for the service to begin. I'm keeping a close eye on myself. I won't misuse your kindness by starting a fight, she said quietly. I know I lied, but deep down, I still felt uneasy. How do you think I feel? She replied with a wry smile. I'm the outcast here. A disgrace. No one sees you that way, Lily. Especially not today. I reassured her, though I knew it wasn't entirely true. I'm sorry, Derek. I wish I could undo it all, she whispered, tears in her eyes, before rushing off to the bathroom. Eva, one of my mom's old friends, patted my shoulder gently. Your mom was wonderful, Derek. We're all going to miss her. After the funeral, we gathered at a small Norwegian restaurant my mom loved. I noticed Lily looking uncomfortable, unsure of where to sit. Taking her hand, I led her to the table where Alice and the girls were seated. Lily, you'll always be family, despite the divorce. You're welcome to sit with us, I said softly. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she thanked me. In that moment, I realized I'd finally let go of the bitterness I'd held on to for so long. Life moved on after that. The girls started Skyping with me weekly once they were away at college. Alice and I were growing stronger, and I was even thinking about proposing soon. Lily and I didn't talk much, but when we did, it was always friendly. She was seeing someone. A nice guy. A single dad her age. I wished them the best. Some people might say I should have forgiven her for her mistake, but I couldn't. Maybe that made me the villain in some people's eyes, but I was at peace with it. I was at peace with myself. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.